So welcome back. We are now in chapter 1, chapter 1.4, and what we're looking at now are some divisibility rules. And we were looking before at factoring, and we were trying to see if a number is a factor. There's a couple of ways you can look at it, is by finding out whether or not it can be broken up into an area, or whether or not it is divisible using a calculator. So for example, if we're looking at factors of 24, we would either try out all the numbers from 1 to 24 to see what their partners are, or we try to find out in areas using any manipulatives or some marbles or rocks to try to find out the factor pairs of 24. Just to review the factor pairs of 24, if we were to build a factor rainbow, 1 and 24 are partners, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. So those are all partners. That should go with the 12th. We could also build it with the areas and try out all the different possible areas to get a rectangle that's 24. Now, what if you had a much larger number? Then it makes it difficult. Again, you could try the divisibility and just try every single number. You try 1, you try 2. Well, 1 goes into everything. 2, you could try 2, you could try 3, you could try 4, you could try 5, and try to see all the factors of that number. However, there are some other tricks and other strategies that will help you do that faster. And these are called the divisibility rules. So these, you don't even need a calculator. You can just look at the number and see whether or not it will be a factor of that larger number. The first ones are a factor of 2. So which means divisibility by 2. So the rule of 2 is pretty simple. Rule of 2 means that 2 is a factor of that number, or the number is a multiple of 2. Either way, you can look at it both ways. All the multiples of 2 are called even numbers. So if the number is even, which means if it ends in a 0, a 2, a 4, a 6, or an 8, it is a multiple of 2. So for example, the number 74 is a multiple of 2 because the last digit is an even number. So 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. So we could say that 74 is a multiple of 2, or 2 is a factor of 74. Which means that if you skip count 2 all the way, you'll get to 74, or the other way around, if you want to make a rectangle, then 2 is a possible dimension of a rectangle that has an area of 74 things in it. So anything that ends in an even number, i.e. 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8, will be divisible by 2. The rule of 3 is pretty cool, and what it is the sum of the digits is divisible by 3. So which means if we add up the numbers, and if the numbers add up to a multiple of 3, then the original number is a multiple of 3. So let's take another example of that one, and let's take the number 87. 87 is not a multiple of 2 because it's not even. It's not an even number. However, let's see if it's a multiple by 3. What we do is we add up the numbers together. 8 plus 7 is 15. 15 is a multiple of 3. So because that is a multiple of 3, then the original number 87 is also a multiple of 3. Now, what if you didn't know that? What if you can continue the trend and even add 1 plus 5 together to get 6? And so we know that 6 is a multiple of 3, therefore 15 is a multiple of 3, therefore 87 is a multiple of 3. Why does it work? Well, it works basically because 9 is a multiple of 3. And then we always have that 1 left over. And so because that 1 is left over, it carries over to the other place. You don't really need to know that, but you just need to know that it works. So if I take a much larger number and you add up all the digits and you continue to add up all the digits, if that ends up being a multiple of 3, then my original number is a multiple of 3. Rule of 4 works like this. If the last 2 digits are a multiple of 4, then the whole number is a multiple of 4. The reason why this works is because we know that 100 is a multiple of 4. Because 100 divided by 4 is 25, so we know that 100 will work. That means we can remove anything in the hundreds place and just look at the last two numbers. So the number, for example, 512. Well, I can divide this by 4 using a calculator, or I can just remove 500 from it because I know that anything hundreds is divisible by 4. So I'm now left with 12. Well, is 12 divisible by 4? Well, it is. I know that 12 is a multiple of 4, or 4 is a factor of 12. That means that 512 will also be a multiple of 4. Rule of 5 is pretty simple because if we look at the skip counts of 5, we get 5, 10, 15, 20, and we see a pattern in the last digits here. So if the last digit is a 5, or a 0, then that number is also a multiple of 5. So for example, the number 1075 is a multiple of 5 because I know that the last digit's a 5 or a 0, which will make it a multiple of 5. It works similarly to the rule of 4 because you can see that every tens, if you just remove the tens digit, you're left with the last digit, and if that one's a 5 or a 0, then it'll be a multiple of 5. A rule of 10 is really simple because we know skip counts of 10 are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, etc. So we know that anything ending in a 0, if the last digit is a 0, then we know it's a multiple of 10. So for example, 1075 is not a multiple of 10 because it ends in a 5. However, the number 1080 is a multiple of 10 because it ends in a 0. The last one's a little bit tricky, and this is the rule of 9. Rule of 9 works exactly like the rule of 3, where the sum of the digits is divisible by 9. So if I take my numbers and I add them up, and it ends up being a multiple of 9, then I know that the original number is a multiple of 9 as well. So for example, if I take the number 1638, so if I take 1638, I add up all the digits, so 1 plus 6 plus 3 plus 8, 1 plus 6 is 7, plus 8 plus 3 is 10, plus 8 is 18, and I add up 1 plus 8 is 9. Because I now get the sum of the digits is 9, then the original number, 1638, is also divisible by 9. Try it out on your calculator, and it's a pretty cool trick. So just to review, these are the rules. There are other rules for 6, for 7, and for 8. 6 is pretty simple. We won't go over these in class. 7 and 8 are a little bit more tricky, but they do exist, and so you can look them up as for extension homework if you wanted to look for that. But at least know the rules for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, and 9, and you should be good. Great. I hope you understand it.